My name is Will Weber. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Nepal. It was Nepal 28. I was a math and science high school teacher in eastern Nepal. I was there from late 1970 through early 1974. I guess I have to tell a story about that. It was winter, so it was cold, and I decided I left kind of late from my village. It was full moon night, and there's a general feeling that one, you don't walk alone, and two, you don't walk at night in Nepal because there's spirits out at night. You just don't know what kind of spirits you're going to get. And again, as a science teacher, I was constantly trying to explain to people that there were not such things to fear in the night. But culturally, you know, it was like people would just scratch their heads and say, well, this guy doesn't know what he's doing, you know, and they would always try to talk me out of it. Well, in this case, I started walking, and I decided I was feeling good. It was getting dark. I got to the last village. The moon was coming up. This is the last village for about 4 hours, so I was going up over the steep part and then coming back down to where the next village was. I'm just going to walk all night and just enjoy this. I think I had a sleeping bag with me because I thought I might do this. So I had a beautiful night in the full moon, looking at the high Himalayas there in the moonlight and nobody around. It was quiet, and I was just thinking, this is fantastic. But as I came down toward the next village where there was a shelter where travelers were sleeping, I could see the fires were just glowing because it was cold. It was maybe 20 degrees or maybe colder than that. It was winter. I thought, well, you know, I'm not going to keep walking. I'm going to go in and sleep here. And I had a big down jacket on, real puffy, and of course I'm tall and I had a big pack on. And I came down to this little shelter, and I heard some people shouting. And I couldn't understand what it was because they were speaking their local tribal vernacular. And I thought, uh-oh, you know, this doesn't look good. This big puffy thing coming in out of the night. So I said, oh, you know, in Nepali, don't worry, you know, hello, don't worry about me. I'm just a Peace Corps volunteer. You know, I'm not going to do anything. I just want to sleep in the corner. You guys don't have to move. I'm not looking for food or anything. Don't worry, I don't have a knife or a gun. Just want a little corner. And they were sort of this intonations in the vernacular. I don't know what they were saying. I knew that it wasn't Nepali. And I could look in there and people were reaching for their knives and things, you know, because I must have been such a fearsome being intruding on them. And I tried to talk a little bit, just sort of break the ice, so to speak, and no one would talk to me. Absolutely would not talk to me. And it wasn't because they didn't speak Nepali. They said, well, you know, I'm really sorry about this. Don't worry, though. And when I got up in the morning, they were all pushed way back in the corner away from where I was. It was really a rude thing to do on my part.
Well, I'm curious, you mentioned...
Well, that was the thing. People really believe in the Yeti. And there's not a clear consensus of what the Yeti looks like. So I could have been the Yeti there coming in, you know, for all intents and purposes. I was big enough, strange enough. Yeti is about at night, and so I think people probably... They had about 2 months off during their summer monsoon season, the rainy season, and that was so that students could help plant the rice. It was a rice planting season, and it was a beautiful time in the village. It was real rainy and real muddy everywhere, and there were leeches, which were the bane of the life in the higher altitudes.
I don't picture leeches up there. Tell me.
Leeches, well, leeches, of course, are the invertebrates that suck your blood, and there are various places in the world, often in tropical environments. And in Nepal, they're particularly a problem in brushy and woody areas between about 2,500 feet and 7,000 or 8,000 feet. Particularly if there's a lot of livestock around. And it takes a leech one blood meal to sustain itself through a year.
They might live on branches?
Yeah, they're sensitive to heat of a passing organism, warm-blooded organism. Mostly they're feeding on wild animals and sheep and buffalo and cattle. And the more sheep, buffalo, and cattle you have, the more leeches in a given area, and the larger they are. And by the end of the monsoon begins usually in late June, early July, and lasts until September. By September, mud is there and it's very moist and the vegetation has really grown up, and so traveling high trails, it's not, I wouldn't say perilous, because leeches don't generally, I mean, it's not painful, it's cosmetically unpleasant to have streaks of blood because they inject a coagulant when they bite your skin.
How would you get them off?
Well, you'd let them drop off, or you could rub salt or rub tobacco on, but when there's enough of them, sort of don't bother, you just, let them go and get through the area as quickly as you can. So it's not uncommon to see people with streaks of blood running down their legs where the leeches had just dropped off. I guess I should tell my favorite leech story here, right?
Yeah, that's it.
I remember it was a monsoon season, and I was coming back to my village at the height of it, and had been there for almost 2 years. I was with a nurse, actually a British nurse, who was going through to a distant village. And we decided, we knew enough about Nepal that we could do this, and we took the trail that went through the forest, and imagined we were going to time it so we didn't go through in the rain, because as soon as it starts raining, there's more moisture and they just come out. And we mistimed it badly, and we started into this forest, and very soon we were seeing on our legs while we kept going, and the rain started harder. And we got into the forest, and it was both miserable because it was raining so hard, not cold, just raining, and because leeches. So we went into a little cattle herder's hut. It was just really filthy, it was manure and mud, but there was a roof over it. And we went in, and we were just covered with leeches and running with blood, and the cattle herders were not hospitable toward us. I mean, they were not willing to accommodate us. They had young buffalo and young cattle they had to take care of, and that was a serious thing, and we sort of respected them for that. We didn't want to push their newborn cattle out in the rain because we were. So we continued on, and I remember when we finally came out the other side of that forest down to where we were out of the worst leech country, we had just blood running out of our hair because the leeches had dropped from the trees into our hair, and then they dropped off, and so we looked like we had been through a battle. It was pretty awful. It was pretty awful.
Now you mentioned they had cattle and buffalo. What the buffalo?
Water buffalo. They take up the high elevations in the summer where there's pasture. Yeah.
And the water buffalo are used for
milk.
For milk, for the water
they
buffalo.
give good milk. Yeah.
Have you ever had it?
Oh yeah.
Does it taste similar to cow's
milk? Very good. No, it's sweeter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In fact, for a while I owned a share in a water buffalo and then traded for a share in a cow. And the deal was my neighbor would keep the cow. I bought it. He would keep it and feed it. I would get 1/4 to 1/2. He guaranteed me 1 local measure of yogurt and 1 local measure of milk every morning. And anything else he kept for his family. And this kid would bring it up to me fresh every morning, and I'd ask after my cow, and it's a good deal for both of us, actually. I think back, I worry about my village because now Nepal has a problem with Maoists. And I'm sure many of the people that I knew well who owned land are targets of this current insurrection. And I wonder what happened to those people, because in a way the Maoists are not in favor of education. They really target people who are landowners, people who've made good of their lives. And I wouldn't dare go back to that area now because it would be too dangerous for a foreigner to travel there. So in some ways it sort of certifies the value of having had that experience when I was there. The world changes in ways, and certain things are lost that I'm sure that village will not be the same after this trauma now, this political change that's going on there.
Now, looking over your 2 years, any particular sense of achievement regrets or satisfactions? Just generally what pops to mind.
Yeah, I think, I thought about that often. I did some things like starting a school garden where I was able to bring in improved quality vegetable seeds and flower seeds, and that was a really popular thing, to get a hold of these seeds that were more productive than the seeds that local people had. And it was an amazing thing because planting seeds is an adult responsibility. You don't trust children with gardening. It's too much at stake if the little plot of land you're cultivating doesn't produce. So it took a lot of effort to just get a plot of land the size of this room we're sitting in, 10 by 20, to be allowed for the school to give to children as a chance to, and the kids were unleashed in this opportunity to be responsible for planting seeds and producing crops. I never saw in anything that I did such enthusiasm for, let me try it, let me do it, this is fantastic, we're going to plant our own seeds. And we went through the whole thing with, the goats got in and the seeds weren't right, or they weren't planted at the right time, or somebody came at night and took the cauliflower just before we were going to pick them the next day. The whole realm of things that you need to worry about. And it was a very practical learning experience that the kids personally experienced, not through their parents, or, in some ways there's a sense of you don't want to make mistakes, you should have learned them generations ago. Well, here was a chance for kids to make mistakes, to revivify that knowledge of what you're supposed to do to produce crops. That was a fun thing to do. I think individually I was proud that my cook and friend in the village passed his SLC against all odds. He wasn't a Brahmin. He wasn't from any kind of a privileged family. He didn't come into our friendship with any particular aptitude or experience that would lead him to be able to pass the test. But he learned his English. English is the most difficult subject for the Nepalese, so by being able to pass the English on the school leaving certificate, he was then able to go on and get a college degree in engineering, and subsequently I learned, got a good job. So that was, one personal story that turned out for the better because of me.